The federal tax code is nearly 75,000 pages. It is impossible to read and comprehend and understand every single page that's in the tax code. 75,000 pages is insane. But there are some fundamentals of the tax code system that everyone should know, including what modified adjusted gross income is. And that's exactly what you're going to find out in this video. Everything that you need to know about what modified adjusted gross income is, also known as MAGI, the importance of it, how to calculate it, and how it affects you. Let's first start by talking about what modified adjusted gross income actually is. So basically what it is you take your adjusted gross income, which is another part of the tax code system, and you're going to add back some certain things in order to modify it. The amount of modified adjusted gross income that you're going to have is going to be somewhere between your gross income and somewhere between your adjusted gross income. For some people, in certain situations, their adjusted gross income can equal exactly what their modified adjusted gross income is. But for others, you are going to have to add a few things back to what you took away when you adjusted your gross income down to your adjusted gross income. You just add a few things back, and then you have your modified adjusted gross income. One question that you might have is, who does modified adjusted gross income affect? Who does it affect? Does it affect you? Well, possibly, because modified adjusted gross income can affect basically anyone. Anyone who is a taxpayer, anyone who files federal taxes. And that's because high income earners and even median income earners are going to be subject to modified adjusted gross income when it comes to certain tax deductions and certain tax credits. It's kind of treated as a ceiling. To where, if your income, your modified adjusted gross income, goes above this certain amount, this ceiling, you might not qualify for certain deductions, you might not qualify for certain tax credits, and we're going to talk specifically about a few tax deductions and a few tax credits that are very common that are affected by modified adjusted gross income, so stay tuned for that. When you're going to need modified adjusted gross income is when you're trying to determine if you're going to be eligible for something. So here are some very common ones that are affected by modified adjusted gross income. So whether or not you can contribute to a Roth IRA is dependent on what your modified adjusted gross income is. So if your MAGI is above a certain amount, then you're technically ineligible to contribute to a Roth IRA. The same goes for a traditional IRA. So after a certain amount of modified adjusted gross income, once your income reaches a certain threshold, you can no longer take a tax deduction for a traditional IRA. So you can still contribute to it, but you don't get the tax deduction benefits that a traditional IRA typically would let you do if you're under that certain threshold. And another big one is when it comes to medical subsidies. So if you qualify for any kind of government-sponsored subsidy to help pay for your health insurance premiums, those are going to be dependent on typically your modified adjusted gross income, not just your total income of what you make, but your actual modified adjusted gross income. And there are definitely a lot more things that are going to be dependent on that MAGI number. But those are really the big three that most people are concerned with. And next we're going to talk about why MAGI exists, how to calculate it, and where to find your own number. But before I do that, really quick, I just want to say, if you are enjoying this video so far, please give it a thumbs up and give it a like. It really helps me out and I really do appreciate it. And consider subscribing to the channel and put that bell on for notifications, because every single week I am putting out new information on personal finance, on taxes, on growing your net worth, anything personal finance related, and I just know that there's something that I can help you with. Currently, I'm putting out new videos every Tuesdays and Fridays at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So make sure you subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss them. And now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can move on to what MAGI actually exists. Why does it exist? So there is no documentation, no official statements from the IRS, at least what I'm aware of, that says why modified adjusted gross income exists. But we can kind of see what it is and kind of come to a conclusion of what might it be, like what its purpose might be. And one thing that the MAGI does is that it excludes higher earners, like higher income earners, from certain tax credits, deductions, and subsidies, right? Because what happens is you can actually get your adjusted gross income much lower than what your gross income is. So you can make, just a hypothetical example, you can make $100,000, all right? But you can adjust that down with using the tax code. You can adjust that gross income down to a very small amount of what it originally was. So in essence, you are actually taking in $100,000 of total income, but you're making it look like it's much less. I've done a video on this before where you can actually earn, as a married couple finding jointly, I think you can earn like almost $120,000 a year and easily pay $0 in federal income taxes. So there are ways that you can get your adjusted gross income, very, very low, even if you are making, a relatively high amount of income. So the modified adjusted gross income doesn't allow for that kind of artificially reduced income. So it adds back some of those things that adjust your gross income down, and it adds it back. It's like, well, actually you are kind of making a lot of money. So why should you, who's making a lot of money, get these tax deductions or get these tax credits or, get a healthcare subsidy, whatever it may be. So I think that is the main idea of why MAGI exists, instead of just relying on, adjusted gross income or AGI. Now here's the funny part, is that you won't actually find MAGI on your tax form. So on Form 1040, the main tax form that you file in the United States for your federal income taxes, on there, on 1040, line 8B, that is your adjusted gross income, all right? So typically when you're trying to calculate your MAGI, which we're gonna talk about in a second, you're gonna start at that AGI. You're gonna start at that line 8B on 1040. But there is no specific line on that same form or pretty much any other form that says this is your modified adjusted gross income. And there's a few reasons for that. You actually have to calculate your MAGI on your own. And how you actually calculate it is actually going to be dependent on what you're trying to qualify for. So if you're trying to figure out if you can contribute to a Roth IRA, if your income is under the limit, or if you're trying to contribute to the traditional IRA and find out if you're allowed to take that tax deduction, or if you're trying to figure out if you're going to qualify for a healthcare subsidy, whatever it may be, you're going to have to calculate the MAGI on your own. And typically what the IRS does is they actually have like little worksheets that you can kind of follow and see what you add back in order to calculate your MAGI. Because here's the thing, MAGI can actually be different for different things. So it might be different when you're trying to see if you can qualify for the Roth IRA, if you can contribute to one. And the MAGI number might be different if you're trying to figure out for a healthcare subsidy. So they can actually all be calculated different. So there is no just one MAGI. There is no one modified adjusted gross income. You can have multiple ones depending on what you're trying to qualify for. And that's probably a really big reason why there's not a line on your taxes that says this is MAGI. Because it can be different in different situations. Now here's one example I will put up on the screen for you. It is worksheet 2-1 from the IRS website, and this is how you would calculate your MAGI for a Roth IRA. So you would basically follow that, and you can see on worksheet 2-1 what they add back in order to calculate if you're going to be eligible to contribute to a Roth IRA. And that is just one example. Whenever you're trying to figure out if you're going to be qualified for, first you got to look at what the MAGI levels are, and if your income is pretty much nowhere near that, then you shouldn't really have to worry about that, But if you're about to enter that threshold that the IRS posts that says, once you get to this amount, you're not going to qualify for this, or you're going to get reduced qualifications in order to, contribute to a Roth IRA or take a tax deduction, whatever it may be. So first look at those numbers, and then you're going to have to find on the IRS website where you can calculate your MAGI. Now, if you're using a tax filing software, they're usually going to do all this for you. So it takes all the calculations out of the works for you because it does it for you. But if you want to learn and understand, exactly what it's calculating, that is how you can do it. You can look up these worksheets on the IRS website to see, like I just showed you, the MAGI worksheet for the Roth IRAs, and you can look that up for all the other ones. And while MAGI is a really important concept to learn in taxes, there is still so much more to learn about taxes in general, about personal finance, growing your net worth, and everything under the sun. And if you enjoyed watching this video, I just know you're going to enjoy watching this video as well. It's called How to Achieve Financial Independence in 10 Years or Less, and it is my full guide, my full blueprint for you to grow your net worth and become a master of your own cash flow. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.